And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. I hope you had a great Independence Day, and I hope you enjoyed celebrating our freedom, which we take very seriously here at the Tim Donnelly Show, and we work very hard to defend our freedom and our personal individual liberty, which is continuously put at risk by government policies. And we saw over the weekend in San Francisco the results of a catastrophic policy implemented by the Democrats that resulted in an illegal alien being let out of jail so that he could wander the streets of San Francisco. And an American woman, a young woman, 32 years old, Catherine Steinle, was cut down in the prime of her life. She was, according to all intents and for all intents and purposes, was a truly amazing human being. But that didn't matter to the leaders of San Francisco, because they love illegal aliens and they want to make sure they protect anyone who comes into their city illegally at the expense of everyone else. They don't care. And I wrote a scathing op-ed that you can find at timdonnellyshow.com. It's also hosted at breitbart.com that California Democrats have blood on their hands. Their policies have directly led to this incident. And here's the sad thing. This woman wasn't much older than the Noskinator, who's had an exciting weekend.
Oh, I had an amazing weekend.
Yeah, on the buses.
Yeah.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if my gypsy soul always steers me in the right direction. Yeah,
but I mean, you had to see this story. This is one that's just truly, absolutely tragic, and it's tragic in large part, because not only was it 100% predictable, it was 100% preventable.
Oh, 100%. And I hope that this opens a lot of people's eyes and to start taking action to be a part of this and helping it.
Yeah, the bottom line is you have the architects of the San Francisco sanctuary policy. And let me just explain what a sanctuary policy is. Sanctuary policy is where local state or municipality or city, like San Francisco or like the state of California, decides we're not going to cooperate with the federal immigration authorities, with ICE. We're going to tell them to go pound sand. And so they had a really ironclad, we refuse to cooperate with ICE policy in San Francisco for as long as anyone can remember. And on June 8th of 2008, that policy came under heavy fire because of an equally tragic, if not even more tragic, incident that occurred on that day, which was you had a father and two sons who decided they want to go out to the local park, which is in the city of San Francisco, and play baseball. Well, I mean, people do that all the time. It's a summer activity. As a matter of fact, when you have more than one teenage or early 20s boy in the house and you're a female, you like to get a break from all that testosterone, all that activity. And so Danielle Bologna was happy to have her men head out to the ballpark to burn off some energy. And she was taking some time for herself, relaxing in her home, probably having a cup of tea or iced tea or something, depending on her preference, reading a magazine, enjoying the quiet, right? I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who can relate to it, including my wife. But then she gets a knock on the door from a San Francisco police officer who tells her that her husband and her 2 sons have been slaughtered. They've been gunned down. They've been murdered by Edwin Ramos, who is he's an illegal alien. He is an MS-13 Marisalva-Trusha gang member. And that morning, as they were heading to the park, unbeknownst to them, because they're just a father and 2 sons, they're not gang members, even though they have shaved heads and the father has a real pencil-thin goatee, and I suppose in some shallow, careless physical comparison, you could say that possibly they looked like who Edwin Ramos was looking for. He was looking for Mexican gang members because he was El Salvadoran, and he was shot at by some Mexican gang members. And when the Bologna family, who by the way are Italian, made a wrong turn, got stuck in a cul-de-sac or something, which is easy to do in San Francisco, he got out of his car and he emptied his gun into the car that the Bologna family was driving for no reason at all, except that he thought they looked like the gang members he was looking for. So you have virtually an entire family snuffed out by California's sanctuary policies. You'd think in 2008 that would have led to a radical rewriting of the sanctuary policy in San Francisco. And you'd be wrong. Not only did they only tinker around the edges, and by the way, at the time, Kamala Harris was the DA of San Francisco. She's now the Attorney General of California. Gavin Newsom was the mayor of San Francisco. They fully, absolutely, enthusiastically not only supported sanctuary policies for illegals, but they championed them. They wanted to spread them around the whole state. They found a welcome ear. So afterwards, they did a little tinkering to pretend that they were going to somehow maybe cooperate in the case of dangerous gang members, blah, blah, blah. Well, it was all BS. And Tom Amiano, the assemblyman from San Francisco, came to the floor of the California State Assembly and belittled anyone like you who would stand up for the life of someone like the Bolognas or Catherine Steinle. And he pushed a bill that would take San Francisco's disastrous sanctuary policies and spread them statewide. He initially introduced the bill in 2011, known as AB 1081. And later on in the show, we'll play you a segment of the speech I gave against it, warning that people would die if we made this policy around the state of California. I read a segment where even Governor Jerry Brown, as Attorney General, opposed these types of sanctuary policies where you refuse to cooperate with the federal authorities because it puts the larger community at risk. But 2 years later, in 2013, Jerry Brown signed what is called the Trust Act, AB 4. And that led to the events last week that ended tragically in the death of Catherine Steinle. We will continue this story, and we'll take your calls at 323-746-TALK, 323-746-8255, right after this break. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. This is the Radio Free California Network, and you can connect with us at our website, timdonnellyshow.com. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, email. If you have something that you want to say, good or bad, we don't care. But whatever you send us is fair game, by the way, to be ultimately read on air. But our preferred form of communication is the good old-fashioned telephone. So lock in this number, 323-746-TALK. That's 323-746-8255. Before the break, I was laying out the history of what led up to this horrific tragedy in San Francisco. And I was talking to you about the Bologna case, where you had a father and two sons who were heading out to the ballpark. You had an MS-13 gang member who had violently assaulted a woman on a bus. His name is Edwin Ramos. It turns out none of the authorities knew this at the time, but I guess if somebody violently assaults a pregnant woman on the bus, you can reasonably conclude he's not a nice guy. Does that sound reasonable?
Not even, no.
This from someone who just rode a bus.
Yes, let's not go there.
Okay, but obviously you can reasonably conclude that anyone who would assault a pregnant woman is ruthless and cold-blooded. There's something seriously wrong with him. And it turns out later, the FBI discovered he had committed a murder. So you have a murderer who is an all-around bad guy who's a member of a gang, but San Francisco is committed to protecting the rights of immigrants. That's how they put it. It's all these immigrants. It's never illegals. It's never illegal alien criminals. It's always immigrants, as if there's this wonderful, massive bastion of greatness and nobility. Well, yeah, there's a lot of immigrants that are wonderful, amazing people who have come to this country and made it better. There's even people who have come here illegally who are not a threat to Americans. They just want a better life, and they're desperate, and Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble for mentioning that a lot of people come to the United States out of desperation. Now, he didn't put it right. He didn't formulate his words in an acceptable manner. But here's the interesting thing. Back when this case hit in 2008, the Bologna family, the news media was very reluctant to even record that this gangbanger, this MS-13 gang member, which is one of the most violent, vicious, and brutal gangs in the history of gangs. And it was formed to combat the Mexican gangs because the Mexican gangs were treating the El Salvadorans with disrespect. And so they actually would cut off the heads of their rival gang members. They wanted to raise brutality to a level that would terrorize this other gang. That's who this kid was who killed a father and two sons. And the reason I'm hammering on a case from 2008 is because there were people like me who warned that this would not be the last killing in a city that had made itself a target, that had identified itself as a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals, not for citizens. And by the way, they were trying to cover this case. I don't know if you saw this story. They were trying to cover this recent killing of Catherine Steinle in San Francisco. And gun-wielding thugs robbed the camera crews of their video cameras. Literally stole their cameras away from them.
While they were
while they were trying to cover the case. I mean, the San Francisco has gone from being one of the best cities in the country, and I'm a fan of San Francisco. I know that's going to sound weird, but I love the city. I love the Bay. I love the Bay Area. Yes, it used to be a bastion of conservatism. Now it's a bastion of Marxist progressivism. I can't even talk today, but San Francisco has become one of the most violent cities in California. And it has, I believe, become so because the minute you say you're going to excuse some crime, you encourage more crime. And the bottom line is the Bologna family, Tony, Michael, and Matthew, were murdered in cold blood for no reason but being in the wrong place at the wrong time and looking like the gang members that this worthless MS-13 gang member Edwin Ramos was looking for. And he got out and coldly, calculatingly emptied round after round, clip after clip into this car, filled the car with so many bullets, slaughtered the father and his two sons as they were trying to turn around their car. They didn't expect someone to get out with a gun and murder them. And you know what's, in spite of all of the gun control measures of the do-gooder Marxist progressives, all you progressives out there that think gun control is doing anything, hey, guess what? You tell me how this illegal alien, Edwin Ramos, and how this in 2008, and how this illegal alien, Francisco Sanchez, were able to get a gun. I mean, they're not even in the country legally. They don't have proper identification. How do they get a gun? If your gun control measures, and you got them ironclad in a city like San Francisco where you ban guns, how come a criminal can always seem to get a gun when he wants to kill somebody? I wish I could ask... I wish we could get Gavin Newsom, who wants to be the next governor of the state of California. I wish we could get Kamala Harris, who wants to be the next U.S. senator from California. I wish we could get Tom Amiano, my nemesis in the California State Assembly, the flamboyantly gay San Francisco assemblyman who wants to be the next state senator from his area. I wish we could get them on air to answer. They won't come on our program. We've reached out to them, and we're going to leave the line open. Hey, if they want to call in, it's 323-746-TALK. I would love to hear them defend this. By the way, did you hear what the White House said?
No.
Oh, it's priceless. It's priceless, but I'm going to make you wait until after this break because I want you to really hear. We're going to read the White House's response. I'm going to give you a little clue. They blame you, if you happen to be a Republican, for the killing of an innocent white woman in San Francisco at the hands of an illegal alien from Mexico. You can't make this stuff up. 323-746-TALK if you want to weigh in. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right, that is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org.
Come on.
Hey, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show. We're going to go straight to the phones. We've got Dan from Sonoma. Dan, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hi, Tim. Thanks very much. Now, I understand why Obama and company are not saying anything about this murder in San Francisco. And the reason why is simple. It's because there's nothing for them to exploit, as some was with Trayvon Martin and some of these other cases.
Well, yeah, it's not. It's not a minority. It's a white woman, and I guess she must have grown up with white privilege and all that. I'm sure he would justify it in his own mind, and we wouldn't want to offend people who happen to be Hispanic. Not that any of them are out there running around murdering people like this guy did, but you're right. There's nothing he can exploit, and he's got no passion. He's got no excitement to stand up for the average American person unless they're black. That's the only thing I can see.
Well, what frustrates me is that we've come so far away from the truth. The Republican Party is running away from the only person that actually is speaking the truth. And I'm not endorsing Donald Trump by any stretch. But there's nothing wrong with the statement he made the other day about immigration. And I as a conservative, I look for I look for substance. And it was a lot of substance in Trump's statement. And the sad reality is that Republicans are so fearful of racism, they're running away from Trump in droves, with the exception of perhaps Ted Cruz.
Right. No, Dan, you're dead on. Look, we have covered Donald Trump extensively here, and we'll cover anyone who says anything that is relevant and meaningful. But Donald Trump is the only one who is connecting the dots to having a wide open border, to having policies of non-enforcement, to having policies of ignoring businesses who essentially turn people into modern-day indentured servants or modern-day slaves out in the fields and in factories and everything else. Also, they can have cheap labor. And the Democrats, of course, look the other way so they can have cheap votes and stay in power forever, as long as they can keep us divided. But let me tell you something. This issue is not a conservative issue by any stretch of the imagination. The concern over unchecked illegal immigration, the concern over unchecked immigration in general, and having no identifiable policy, but that actually suits the needs of the American people. You never hear anybody talk about that. are shared by Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike. This is an opportunity, but the GOP is so busy trying to remain irrelevant, trying to commit party suicide, that they will purge and excoriate and scorched earth campaigns against guys like Donald Trump, just like they did against me in the governor's race out here, because they don't want anyone who will actually speak the truth in their party.
Well, people are missing overall the big picture overall with immigration. I mean, I understand why people are coming from Mexico and South America. They're looking for a better way of life, and I understand that.
Sure.
But there's nothing wrong with
they'd be crazy, by the way. Dan, they'd be crazy not to come to California where we're giving them so much free stuff.
But see, the point is, though, there's nothing wrong, or it's nothing stopping Mexico from becoming a superpower if they set up their own conservative free market system in their own country. They've got plenty of cheap labor, plenty of resources. What's stopping them is massive corruption in their government, but that's their problem.
Well, do you remember when NAFTA was enacted?
Oh, yeah.
I wound up doing a lot of business in Mexico, and I would drive through the border and go down there and go to these walled cities that were factories. These massive global corporations would set up a huge factory with all the jobs they took from California. It was that giant sucking sound that Ross Perot talked about. And I will tell you that I never met a harder working, more sincere, respectful group of people than the Mexicans I worked with there. It was extraordinary. And yet they have been betrayed by the powerful special interests in their country, by the corrupt elected officials in every party. It doesn't matter what party you put in, because the drug cartels, which own every politician, basically say to the politicians and the reporters, if you tell the truth about us, we will kill you and your family. We'll kill your family members while you watch, and then we'll kill you last. And they do it. And so you have no rule of law. You have no control over your country, and that's what they're fleeing to come here for a better life. And we are putting in place the parameters of a system that essentially could become as corrupt as theirs.
I was going to say exactly right. We're heading down to where Mexico is now. We're becoming our own second/third world country. Now, my grandparents were from Mexico. They came up here, respected the country, respected the laws, worked and built a life for themselves. And again, there's nothing stopping Mexico from building up. They could become an economic superpower in a very short period of time if they could overthrow that corruption that's down there. Is it a simple task? Absolutely not. It's going to be a bloody task to get rid of some of these power brokers down there, but really, that's really their only hope.
But Dan, you're right. And we're facing a similar challenge. So for them, it's to wipe out the unholy alliance between the political class and the drug cartels. And here in the United States, it's trying to undo the unholy alliance between the Republicans and Democrats and their addiction to cheap, unlimited slave labor. I don't know. There's no other shorthand I can use that's more accurate. That's what they want. They want that kind of labor because if you're in the country illegally, I don't care what Obama says, you're not going to go to the authorities if somebody's abusing or exploiting you or taking advantage of you, because you're happy to be out of the hellhole that you fled, where people are being slaughtered for simply walking down the street one day by the cartels and the madness there. And so they're a controllable class of labor, and there's a whole lot of very powerful people who are addicted to that labor.
Well, one last thing, Tim, and as a conservative, we are counting on one party and one party alone to fight for us, and that's the Republican Party. But today, this Republican Party consists mostly of corporatists. That's the people at the top of the organization. The conservatives are in the tiny minority. The Republicans have to overcome the stigma of racism. Because, in my opinion, Obama is the most hated man in the country, but no one says anything. Why? Because of his skin color. The Republicans certainly are not going to say anything, but they're going to have to overcome this some way, somehow.
Dan, I'm laughing here because of the irony. You do realize you're talking about the party that was founded to end slavery, has to overcome the stigma of racism, when they are running a black neurosurgeon, 2 Hispanics, a woman, and a whole other host and levels. Oh, I'm sorry, we've got an Indian American and Bobby Jindal, and a whole host of diversity. And yet, what does the Democrat Party have? They have 4 old white people.
Why is Reince Priebus not putting to the forefront that Martin Luther King was a Republican? He was a Republican because it was a Republican Party that fought to end slavery and to end segregation, not the Democrat Party.
Dan, I will never be able to explain what the leadership of the Republican Party, that I can't even use that word, what the people at the top of the Republican Party do, whether it's in California or on the national level, because they never do anything that makes any sense. They don't like to pick fights. And I think the only thing I can think is they hope at some point to be liked. They hope to be invited to the parties with George Soros. They hope to be invited and gain some of that massive 1% super massive wealthy money from the Warren Buffetts and the George Soroses of the world. They already got Munger's money, and he bought the party in California. But they want to be liked, and they want to get along, and they want the media to stop saying nasty things about them. And when you engage in combative, really truly effective confrontational politics, they're going to call you every name in the book. That's why they call me every name in the book. And if they're not calling your guy every name in the book, then they're not getting under their skin. They're not being effective. But the bottom line is, this is the one issue, I think, that can reveal that hypocrisy and at the same time offer an opportunity for a single candidate to rise out of the pack. And I think you're seeing it. Look, Donald Trump is really engaging the American people for a lot of reasons. Now, will he be able to survive? I don't know. They'll probably take him out and sink his boat. So somebody else in that pack of 14 or 12 or 57, we can't keep count, of Republican candidates could take advantage and could rise to the top and let their light shine. But they better have a good message, and they better never waver.
I think the smartest one in the bunch at this point is Ted Cruz.
Well, I am good friends with Ted Cruz's father, and I can tell you he is a man that once he takes a course, he will not waver. And I would certainly love to hear him speak more about immigration. I think he certainly has a family history that is intriguing. And, you know, the bottom line is people are hungry for some truth, and they're tired of politicians who just pander relentlessly. But Dan, thank you for your call, and thanks for listening from Sonoma.
My pleasure, Tim. Take care.
Godspeed. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. If you want to weigh in, 323-746-TALK. We've got Jamil Shaw coming up at the top of the hour, and you will want to hear Jamil Shaw's story, especially in light of what happened in San Francisco. Tim Donnelly Show continues right after these messages. Hey, you've heard me talk over and over again about Burro Canyon Shooting Park, which is arguably the greatest place on the face of the earth to exercise your Second Amendment. But it just got better, because if you mention the Tim Donnelly Show, they'll give you free stuff. You get a free hat, free coffee cup, while supplies last, if you mention Tim Donnelly Show. So get out there and get shooting. For directions or more information, call Burro Canyon at 626-910-1344. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. We stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. That's the best way to connect with us. And, you know, when things like this horrific, tragic, preventable murder occur in the United States, in California, in places like San Francisco. I expect my president, and it doesn't matter whether you like Obama, doesn't matter whether you hate Obama, he's our president. I expect him to stand up and say something. But evidently, Catherine Steinle is not black. She wasn't killed by a white cop. She doesn't matter to the President of the United States. Now, this is a president who has routinely inserted himself in individual cases. But this case actually touches upon his policies, because he basically wants to erase all immigration law. He has instructed the sworn members of law enforcement in the Border Patrol, in the Department of Homeland Security, and I'm not talking about the idiot politicians at the head. I'm not talking about that stupid moron Jay Johnson, who is the so-called Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. That guy is a moron who should be taken out back and talked to. I don't want to get the NSA breaking down the door here and say what I really think, but that he's a traitor to this country. And because he refuses to enforce the law, that's the only reason his job exists. He's not there to be an advocate for illegal alien criminals, but he is. And Obama is. And the sworn law enforcement are left demoralized because they're not allowed to do their job. And Obama today, his White House, actually, I'm going to read you a statement, then I'm going to let you listen to the passion with which President Obama talks about other issues. The fact is that the president has done everything within his power to make sure that we are focusing our law enforcement resources on criminals and those who pose a threat to public safety. Well, I hate to tell you, Josh Earnest, spokesman for the president, big fail. And it's the political efforts of Republicans. It's because of the political efforts of Republicans that we have not been able to make the kind of investment that we'd like to make in securing our border and keeping our community safe. That's direct from the president's spokesman. You're at fault. Catherine Steinle was killed because the Republicans, who couldn't find their way out of a paper bag, have successfully foiled the president into a corner, and they couldn't secure the border without making more investments. You know what? It doesn't take an investment, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to secure the damn border. But the border wasn't the problem, because this guy's been in the United States for years. He was deported 5 separate times, and he keeps getting back in because we don't have a border fence. We have no enforcement. He has 7 felonies on his record. Now listen to the passion with which the president talks about ISIS slaughtering people. It certainly isn't the same passion he used in a eulogy to eulogize the 9 black Americans who were killed tragically in a church in Charleston.
While the focus of our discussions today was on Iraq and Syria, ISIL and its ideology also obviously pose a grave threat beyond the region. In recent weeks, we've seen deadly attacks in Tunisia, Kuwait, and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. We see a growing ISIL presence in Libya and attempts to establish footholds across North Africa, the Middle East, the Caucasus, and Southeast Asia. We've seen attacks in Ottawa, Sydney, France, and Copenhagen. So I've called on the international community to unite this scourge of violent extremism. In this fight, the United States continues to lead. When necessary to prevent attacks against our nation, we'll take direct action against terrorists. We'll continue to also partner with nations from Afghanistan and Nigeria to build up their security forces. We're going to work day and night with allies and partners to disrupt terrorist networks and thwart attacks, and to smother nascent ISIL cells that may be trying to develop in other parts of the world. This also includes remaining vigilant in protecting against attacks here in the homeland. Now, I think it's important for us to recognize the threat of violent extremism is not restricted to any one community. Here in the United States, we've seen all kinds of homegrown terrorism. And tragically, recent history reminds us how even a single individual motivated by a hateful ideology with access to dangerous weapons can inflict horrendous harm on Americans. So our efforts to counter violent extremism must not target any one community because of their faith or background, including patriotic Muslim Americans who are our partners in keeping our country safe. That said, we also have to acknowledge that ISIL has been particularly effective at reaching out to and recruiting vulnerable people around the world, including here in the United States. And they are targeting Muslim communities around the world. Numerous individuals have been arrested across the country for plotting attacks or attempting to join ISIL in Syria and Iraq. 2 men apparently inspired by ISIL opened fire in Garland, Texas. And because of our success over the years in improving our homeland security, we've made it harder for terrorists to carry out large-scale attacks like 9/11 here at home.
Yeah, we're out of time, but I can't even say what I'm thinking. Sounds like he's falling asleep. He's talking about people being beheaded, people being slaughtered, 40 and 50 at a time, children being forced to assassinate. Wow, don't get too excited, Obama. Hey, Jamil Shaw coming up after the break.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Hey, if you're just tuning in to the Tim Donnelly Show, where you been? What are you working? Hey, don't worry. You don't have to miss a minute because you can go to timdonnellyshow.com, go to our previous shows, and you can listen to any one of our previous podcasts. But also, if you just click on the Listen 24/7 link, you can listen to our stream, which starts as soon as the show ends and ends just before the next show. So you don't have to miss anything. And we've been talking about this horrific, tragic, 100% unfortunately predictable, but also 100% preventable killing of Catherine Steinle on Pier 14. She was out for a walk with her father and a friend when all of a sudden she collapses on the pier and she's having trouble breathing and she's asking her dad to help her. Help me. It's heartbreaking. We're going to play you a clip later on from her brother who just tells you who she is. But right now, we're going to bring on one of my friends who I met because of the tragic circumstances and the tragic death of his son, Jameel Shaw Jr. I want to welcome to the show Jameel Shaw Sr. Jameel, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm always glad to talk to you. I just wish that it wasn't always under tragic circumstances. I mean, yours happened, was it 2006? Am I right on the date?
2008.
2008. Oh, so it was the same year as the Bologna killings in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember they came down to L.A., and we did a show together on, what's it, KMPC, or, with Doug McIntyre's show at the time. And, and we went down to Councilman, the guy that used to be Weiss, something like that. He was the city council. And, we went down there and protested his office, and she was there.
Well, yeah, and when you say she, you're referring to Danielle Bologna, who was the widow of Tony. And of course, Jameel, are you surprised that the sanctuary policies that led to your son's death, tragic, preventable death in Los Angeles, have happened in a city like San Francisco, where they have been so proud, bragging about how they've made their city a sanctuary for criminals, for illegal aliens who have committed crimes? Hey, come here, you're safe here, do whatever you want, we'll protect you, we won't cooperate with the feds. Are you surprised?
No, I'm surprised it took so long, because I used to always tell everybody, all these dead people that are murdered by illegal aliens, or just murdered, period, but murdered by illegal aliens specifically, it's going to run its course. It's going to make a big circle, and it's have to come back up. I can understand why all the people would be dead and you're not hearing nothing, and everybody's defending it. And some people are motivated by just the thought of it happening to them. They don't want it to happen, so they'll do something. And then you get some people that are only motivated by what it's actually like. And the reason why there's such an outcry is that conservatives are always complaining about this, but the liberals never would. But now it's like one of theirs. Now they know what it feels like. They got a taste of it, and they don't like it. So it doesn't matter where you're from. They're like, wait a minute, I might be liberal as hell, but I don't want people to get killed by illegal aliens. So they've drawn the line that it's some of their people now.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that affects everyone. I mean, I don't know what your politics are. I've never asked you, but I know where your heart is on illegal immigration. But I sense you probably weren't a really hyper-political person before that. You were probably minding your own business. You were raising your son, Jameel Shaw Jr. He was a terrific athlete. He was a great student, and he was a really decent young man who you were hoping was going to have a chance to go to college and have a better life than you and his mom, right?
Right, definitely. That's why, I mean, you talking about surprise, that was a shock, because you couldn't have told me that all we were doing for the 17 years leading up to that, and it would end by legal alien getting out the county jail and murdering them. When it first happened, I thought somebody black did it. They told me it was a legal alien. I didn't know. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what? I couldn't believe it, and then to see that kind of stuff happens, and then you're trying your best, and, it's not fair to Americans, because his life was stolen, not just his life, but all his opportunities that he had lined up for himself were given to somebody else. Who knows who it was, because he wasn't there to claim everything that he was entitled to.
Well,
that's how they destroy.
You had college offers for Jameel coming in, even 6 months later, 8 months later, a year later, when you came up to the Capitol and testified. But let's give the audience a quick synopsis of what happened to your son, and so that they can really understand how it relates to this other case.
Yeah, basically we went to a football training clinic that was designed for Division I prospects, where that's where everybody wants to go, Division I. So we had made it until that realm of, echelon, so to speak. So he got invited there. We were on an 8th week of a 10-week program. He asked me could he go home on the way home from the training that Sunday. He asked me to go to the mall. Of course, I didn't want to let him go, but I let him go. He's a good kid, never been in trouble. So, I remember to be home by 7. I remember 7 o'clock came. He wasn't there. I called him. He said, "Oh, we got on the wrong bus, Dad." And I said, "Oh man, I would have came and got you. Should have called me." Said, "Oh, we're safe. We're safe." That's what he thought. That he knew that's all I was cared about. Are you safe? We're safe, Dad. I said, "Okay, I'll call you in an hour." Called him back. "Hey, I'm right around the corner, Dad. Be there in a couple minutes." Whew, I was like, he made it. I hate to feel like that, but that's how we feel. Phew, he made it home, And a couple minutes later, plow, plow. I mean, woo. It was so loud and crispy. It was like I was in a gun range. I was like, I remember saying, damn, because that was too close.
Yeah.
I remember looking outside and didn't see nothing and called his phone and said, "Man, look out, somebody's shooting." Didn't answer the phone and it hit me. Damn, don't tell me this boy just got shot. I remember saying it to myself and I remember saying, I hope he's not dead. And I went outside and looked. There he was, laying in the street. Duh, I couldn't even today. When I tell that story, my body just warms up. It's just so unbelievable that I'm talking about my son,
Yeah.
And to see him down the street with his face turned to the house, eyes closed like he was asleep, still had the cell phone in his hand. And I was like 3 houses down, and it just came into my face like, shh. I remember hearing the sound of his face just coming right to me, stopped right at my nose, and it was like, what? He's like, he dead. Ran down there, and oh my God, the boy was dead. I couldn't believe it. Big old hole in his head. Oh, even today, man, all this blood was out. I mean, all the blood was gone just that fast. And I couldn't believe it. It's even today, And then to find out that the guy who did it was illegally in the country on his 3rd gun charge. He was in jail for assault with a deadly weapon, battery on a peace officer. They only gave him 8 months in the county jail, let him out 4 months early.
But shouldn't they have?
He got out.
Shouldn't they have turned him over to immigration authorities for deportation?
Yeah, that's what they were supposed to do. But they were doing that kind of stuff way back then.
But they had a sanctuary policy in place called Special Order 40 in Los Angeles. And Jamil, I can't even imagine the conversation when you called Jamil's mom to tell her that she needed to come home from Afghanistan, where she was serving the country, and bury her son.
Man, even today, that was so unreal, because when I tell that story, I tell people, how when people go to the military and go overseas to fight, the people in the United States are worried. We don't want to get no phone calls and nobody come knocking on the door from the military, because that means death. You know what I mean? So that's what you're worried about. But when you're over there, the military guys and women, they're not thinking about them getting a phone call to say that, you know what I mean? So she was caught off guard. She thought she couldn't understand what they wanted me for. She couldn't understand what it was, And they go in there and because I didn't even know where she was at. The LAPD was one of the guys was in the Army, and he knew how to contact her in Iraq, and they got in contact with her. But when she called me, she said, "Jamil, they're telling me Jazz is dead." I remember that phone call. She didn't say, "Hello, how you doing?" They're telling me Jazz is dead. And I want to say, nah, who told you that? They're wrong. And she can believe it. I'm in Iraq. I'm way out here protecting, our country, protecting their country, and my son is dead by the hands of a foreigner. But at that time, we didn't even know he was illegal. Nobody knew. Yeah.
And Jamil, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll continue the story right when we get back.
Okay.
Hey, if you want to call in, if you have any questions, 323-746 or comments, 323-746-TALK. We'll be right back. Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turner's is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show. We are talking with Jameel Shaw Sr., who lost his son, Jameel Shaw Jr. Jameel, he was 17, right?
Yes.
And he was being recruited from all over the country. You had to call his mom to find out, to explain to her what had happened. And here's my question to you. You lived through the aftermath of what the Bologna family went through, of what the Steinle family is about to go through, which is when you find out that the political policies, the Special Order 40, which protects illegal alien criminals from being turned over to immigration authorities, which, by the way, has now been codified into state law. The entire state has become a sanctuary state for illegal alien criminals. That's the legacy of your case, of Danielle Bologna's case, and it was pushed, all of it, from San Francisco, from Kamala Harris, who wants to be our next senator, Gavin Newsom, who wants to be our next governor, who were respectively the DA and mayor of San Francisco, and every time anyone criticizes their policies, anytime anyone says we want to underscore the rule of law, to uphold our laws and protect the citizens of the United States, especially from illegal aliens who happen to be cold-blooded, ruthless killers like the gang member that killed your son, they call us racist. And I know that they called you racist, which is ludicrous because last time I checked, you have black skin.
Yeah, they call me racist. They say that it's like a stop sign. When people call you racist, they're just trying to get, it's just like saying, be quiet. And it works. People who scared to be called racist, but when you don't give a damn, you don't care. When you don't care, who cares what you think I am? I know I'm not. Since when speaking up for your son being murdered by anybody, especially a legal alien? It's just, a lot of those people, they don't know what to say. That's why I always ask them, well, what would you do if your daughter, you have kids? Yeah. What if your daughter was the person that this guy killed? Well, how would you feel? They can't even go there. Some people, man, and you'd be surprised how your breathing pattern changes when you really picture your loved one in a situation. Whew, it's scary. I mean, it's terrifying, because I live it every day. I mean, I live with that happening for real. So when people think, that I'm a racist, I say, well, what would you do? And they can't say nothing. They're like, well, most people is like, they don't want to talk about that because they can imagine the thought of their child laying in the street with a bullet hole in their stomach and in their head, and then find out somebody that was in the custody of the sheriff department, you guys had him, and you let him out? What would you let him out for? Why?
Exactly.
This is on his third gun charge, Tim. 3. I mean, you hear Dianne Feinstein and all the liberal wackos talking about banning guns. None of them have said, hey, let's start with banning guns to illegal aliens. Man, they would get 100%, but they don't want that. They want innocent people. Those guys carry guns like the guy that killed the lady in San Francisco. He claimed they did it. He was shooting at a seal. Now he says he just saw the gun and it went off and he kicked the gun in his hand and fired the cigarette. He was too nonchalant for anybody to have fired a gun in the San Francisco Pier area. Come on now. Anybody fire a gun in that area on purpose or accidental, you're going to be a little concerned where the police, they come in, what I mean? For him to act so nonchalant, that's how they are. He's legally in the country, 5th time deported, 7 felonies, and he's still firing guns on the pier at the tourist attraction and just nonchalantly walked away. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, and
it's not true.
And the facts that have been coming out are even more alarming. The federal authorities had him in their possession. The federal immigration authorities. So he had served some time for coming into the country for the 5th time illegally. And they handed him over to serve time on a drug charge in San Francisco. Well, first of all, that's stupid. They aren't putting people away for drug charges. So as soon as they put him in, he was in there for a couple of weeks. He gets processed. They decide not to even incarcerate him. So they only held him.
They dropped the charges.
And they dropped the charges. And then the authorities in San Francisco have the gall to say, well, we have a city law that says we cannot under any circumstances cooperate with immigration. So nobody really fully understood the threat of this individual because they didn't want to understand. They wanted to block that out. They have made it a policy that if a criminal is found to be in the United States illegally, that they will not, under any circumstances, not in the United States, but in California, they will not run their fingerprints through the ICE computer. That's the Federal Immigration Authority's computer to see if they're here illegally and if they have a criminal record. And if they had done that, San Francisco never would have let him out on the streets I don't believe if they truly understood that. But they have refused to even allow his fingerprints to be run through the system.
Just his fingerprints just ran through United States system would have red flagged him. So they knew. See, that was all a scam. What it is, this is how it worked. When the feds got him, the feds only got him ICE because he was in a federal penitentiary. So when he got out of there, they had to come get him because they called him.
That's
right.
They had
to show up.
That's right.
They didn't want to, but they had to. So when they got him, they didn't want him because they had to get rid of him some kind of way before. So what they did is they gave him San Francisco, which like you said, it doesn't make any sense. You already got him. The drug charge that San Francisco wants him on, according to the new rules, that's not going to be, ICE is not going to come into that jail for that.
Jamil,
so know that already.
Can I keep you for one more break?
Sure can.
Hey, we're talking with Jamil Shaw, and I want you to know that this portion of the Tim Donnelly Show is sponsored by CAPS. That's Californians for Population Stabilization, to support an organization that works every day to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law and exposing the truth about how unchecked illegal immigration affects the average Californian. Go to capsweb.org. That's capsweb, C-A-P-S, web.org, and become a member so you can help prevent preventable deaths like the ones that we are talking about. Stay tuned for more of the Tim Donnelly Show to continue after this break. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right. That is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org. Hey, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show. This portion of the Tim Donnelly Show is sponsored by CAPS, that's Californians for Population Stabilization, to support an organization that works every day to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law and exposing the truth about how unchecked illegal immigration affects the average Californian. Go to capsweb.org. That's CAPSweb.org and become a member today. I want to welcome back our guest, who is no stranger to the issue of illegal immigration, sanctuary cities, and unfortunately, tragedy. Jamil Shaw lost his son, Jamil Shaw Jr., who was an incredible, promising athlete and student. He was an extraordinary all-around human being who was really on his way to making something special of himself when he was tragically cut down at 17 years of age. Jamil, what was the name of your son's killer?
Pedro Espinoza. Yeah, legal alien. He was brought over to the country by no fault of his own, you know what I mean? He was 4 years old. Mom and dad illegal, uncles, aunties. I mean, you'd be surprised. And yeah, he was 19 at the time that he killed my son. Yeah.
And he was he was a dreamer.
Yeah,
he was one of the
DACA recipients.
Yeah. He was one of the ones who would have gotten Obama's amnesty because he was brought here as a child, right? So he would have got that childhood. I forget. They've made up so many abbreviations for this tyranny. I don't even know what to call them. I think it's deferred arrival childhood exemptions or something.
Yeah, and then they got a new one that they can't get through yet. The DAPA.
Right.
DACA, Dreamer. They got. I mean, it's probably more than that if we just researched it. But they have the services for them. They pull out all the stops for the illegals.
But you, I mean, since your son's death, you have literally become an activist, whether you liked it or not. Yeah. I've seen you all over the state. I've seen you just recently on an incredible YouTube video, and we're going to get that video and play it on our show sometime this week, because I want people to hear. You were one of the most eloquent speakers at an event that never should have needed to be held in Washington, D.C., where it was a hearing on crimes committed by illegal aliens who would have been eligible for the president's amnesty, right? Right.
Yep.
And
it was a good a good event. You thought everybody cares, and then you go through all that, and you see you hear those same people that they don't really care about legal immigration, because we have in the House, H.R. 1041 is the Jamil Andre Shaw Memorial Act, and that's basically illegal alien crime reporting act. It makes the FBI get the statistics, report it to the people so we can know what's going on, where the crimes are, who's doing it, where they deported, if they weren't deported, where are they, on their probation. We need to know what's going on because we are not informed. That's why we're out there in the streets thinking it's safe and we're being murdered by people who shouldn't even be here. And they won't even sign up on that, most of the Republicans. We have a lot of signatures.
Why?
A lot of sponsors.
What is their rationale for let me get this straight. So say the name of the bill again.
H.R. 1041.
So H.R. 1041.
The Jamil Andre Shaw Memorial Act of 2015.
And what does it do?
For the last 8 years, Walter Jones in South Carolina brought the bill up. It was called the Illegal Alien Crime Reporting Act.
You just want to report. You just want to report
Right.
how many illegals are committing crimes and what their crimes are, where they are, and just
Right.
basically have the FBI report them and put them in a report?
Right, and make it access to the public so we can see what's going on. We know they promise us that all the time, that transparency. So we want to know, because that would have helped my son. Do you think I would have let my son go to the mall that day if I known they had a illegal alien crime wave and they're carrying guns and they're killing blacks? I would have been in the house like everybody else, or demanded some kind of security to help us. But they wouldn't even, all these politicians that I went out and spoke before them, and they called me and told me how nice and this and that, and then look on the bill, they're not even on there. It's like, wait a minute, how could you be against that? They don't want nothing done, even the Republicans, and that's the hard part. Just being a Republican is not enough anymore. You have to, you got to prove it. You got to be conservative all the way. That's why Donald Trump is having so much success. And you can tell he's having success because the Democrats are, oh my God, they're trying to stop him because he's telling the truth.
You're making my producer laugh. My producer is rolling on the floor with your Donald Trump, your liberal voice. You got to do that again. But
it is so real.
You're right. Donald Trump has them screaming. They're like, oh my gosh, one of the Republicans is not listening to the talking points we sent the Republicans. This is the Democrats speaking. The Democrats who run the media are saying, oh my gosh, one of them is off the reservation. And you got Republicans out there saying, oh, he doesn't represent Republican values. Really? Republican values are the rule of law. Republican values are that all people are equal under the law. And that means that includes illegal aliens. So if you come to the country illegally, then you get to be deported, because that's what we do when you break the law. It's not personal. It's not racism. It's not hatred. It's the bottom line is, if you came here illegally, you know what? We'll see you later. We don't want to pay for your cheeseburger. We don't want to pay for your Diet Coke in prison. We don't want to give you free TV and have human rights issues and all that. We want you to go home to where you came from and come back legally.
Wherever it is.
Because the only people who are going to get through legally are going to be the non-criminals, right?
Right, you're right. And they don't want that. I wonder why they don't. I mean, the way you're talking right now, that just makes sense. Why wouldn't any politician think like that? I mean, what could be the rationale to say, well, we want them all, even the rapists and the murderers, and we want them all. Just send everybody over here. We're going to take care of them, feed them, clothe them, give them housing, to give them all our jobs, just run down the country. Why would they want that?
Jamil, I can't answer that question because, as you know, I brought the Arizona law to California when I was first elected.
Right.
I fought on that. I fought the DREAM Act. I had you come up and testify, and a Democrat chairman actually cut you off in the middle of your remarks about your son, which was so disrespectful. The whole room was ready to riot and mutiny on your behalf. And fortunately, one of my colleagues, who is a friend of the Tim Donnelly Show, by the way, Brian Jones, and also Don Wagner of Orange County, They were able to get you back up to the dais to where you could tell the full story without being interrupted. And when you were done and when the testimony was concluded, people were moved. And they were moved to action. And one Democrat said, hey, I can't vote against this bill because you made some good points. And they took her downstairs after she didn't vote in the lunch caucus. And they brutalized her verbally. They berated her. They chewed her up one side and down the other. And when she was done, she was already a white woman, but she was whiter than a ghost. She was whiter than me on the 4th of July, let me tell you. And hey, stop making faces in there. And because I got some sun this weekend. But she came back up. I saw her come back up in the elevator, change her vote to no like everybody else. But we got to her heart because of your story. And we're going to keep telling these stories until enough people wake up and we change the law and we honor Jamil's death. I'm sorry that it has to be this way, but we will never stop fighting until we get people who will actually stand up. I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats. I care if they're Americans. I care if they will stand up for American citizens like Jamil Shaw, like Catherine Steinley's family, like Danielle Bologna's family, and John Clark, who had his wife's legs cut off by an illegal driving drunk. And I know too many stories. I know too many people. Don Rosenberg, who's another friend who happens to be a liberal Democrat, whose son was tragically killed. And, you know, you and I, we know too many people whose families have paid the ultimate price. These politicians don't pay a damn thing. And I just want to thank you again for coming on and for sharing your story. I know it can't be easy, but I think it's so important that people hear it.
Yeah, it's bigger than me, so I'm just being led. I just figured, you know, I have to do this, and hey, it's, you know, better than sitting in the house grieving. I'm gonna grieve either way it goes. At least at least I feel like a little bit. You feel like you're doing something. You come home, you realize, oh, I guess I didn't do nothing. The boy still ain't here, so you just keep on trucking. What else you gonna do? That, you know what I mean? It's hard. That's why I tell people all the time, if you have your family intact, get on your knees and thank God that you don't know what I know about death. You don't want to know. See, I'm at a different level than some people, and I don't like it either, but most people, they think, oh, well, I really feel for you and I understand. No, you don't. Be happy, though. It's okay to be happy and just say, you know what, I'm happy that I don't have to feel like you. I'm sorry. I understand. I don't want it either. You know, be happy. You don't have to get a taste of it.
I can't even imagine. Yeah. I cannot imagine what you go through on a daily basis, but I want to thank you for taking the time to share your story with our audience.
Yep, I appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll see you back in office soon, somewhere.
Well, you never know about that. I'll have to come down and buy you lunch, and we'll talk about it. I'm still trying to get you to run for office.
Hey, man, you know, it's hard because you got to have the love for that. It's like being a football player or any other profession. You got to be good at it. You got to, you know, you're good at it. You know how, you know, you got to have that love for it like you do. That's why you're effective. You got a lot of support. It just so happened we're in this damn liberal state, and it's messing up everything.
Well, we'll keep on fighting. Jamil Shaw, thank you for coming on the Tim Donnelly Show today.
All right. Thank you.
God bless you, and Godspeed.
Okay. All right. Okay, bye.
Hey, this portion of the Tim Donnelly Show was sponsored by CAPS, Californians for Population Stabilization. You need to support this organization. They fight for you every day to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law, exposing the truth about how unchecked illegal immigration affects the average Californian. Go to CAPS Web, that's CAPS web.org, and become a member. It's the least that you can do to fight to keep our community safer. Tim Donnelly Show will continue right after these messages. Hey, if you find yourself in my hometown of Twin Peaks, don't leave without stopping by the grill at the Antlers Inn. It's right in the heart of Twin Peaks. They serve dinner every night. They're right there at Highway 189 and Bear Springs Road. They have the best steaks, the best sushi. No matter what you have, make sure you call ahead for a reservation. 909-336-2600. 909-336-2600. And tell them Tim Donnelly sent you. Hey, you are tuned in to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, former California State Assemblyman Tim Donnelly, and we're basically talking about the same topic all day today. It's just these stories and if you are not aware of what happened, I believe it was on Wednesday, there was a horrific murder that occurred. It was a tragic murder, an incredibly tragic murder when you hear all the circumstances, of a 32-year-old woman who, if you look at the photographs, she was in the prime of her life. And by the way, this was let me just tell you a little bit about what kind of woman this was. Her family, her friends say that she was a happy-go-lucky person who loved everyone, and here she is, 32 years old. When most people are extremely selfish, she's holding fundraisers to benefit patients who have MS. That's multiple sclerosis. She's always doing something for someone else. She loves to travel, but she devotes a lot of her time to charity. She's got a great job. She worked at Medtronic, which is a Bay Area sort of a medical technology company. And she was dedicated to making other people's lives better. Then you have Francisco Sanchez, 7-time loser, 7-time felon, who are worthless. I'm sorry, but they are. Our worthless immigration authorities hand him over to our worthless San Francisco law enforcement, who have no regard for the law and refuse to cooperate with ICE, so he can serve some 3 weeks on a drug charge. They get him in March. By April, they decide not to even, they drop the case, they kick him loose onto the streets. And a couple months later, July 1st, there he is. Catherine Steinle is walking up the pier with her father and a friend, and boom. As a matter of fact, do we have that footage of the interview? It's probably too long to run, but if there's any way we could jump in the middle of it. No, can't do it. Oh, we're out of time. I can't hear you. Oh, the one that actually has the story, and then Francisco Sanchez is in it, where he says he admits the murder. There was a local television station that went in and did a jailhouse interview with this guy, and he acknowledges that he went. Can we roll that? Can you get to the last part of it? Okay, well, roll what you can.
Tragic shooting at a popular tourist site in San Francisco. A young woman killed by an illegal immigrant, a repeat felon who had already been deported 5 times. This morning we're hearing from her family, and ABC's Pierre Thomas has all the latest. Good morning, Pierre.
Good morning, George. Yes, this is tragic on every level, and it raises an awful question. Did a gap in our nation's immigration system cost this victim her life? Catherine Steinle, only 32, by all accounts, a loving and wonderful daughter and sister, is dead this morning and should not be. Authorities say she was killed by this man, Francisco Sanchez, an illegal immigrant who had been deported 5 times and who federal authorities say should never have been on the street.
There's one victim, gunshot wound to the back.
Her father, Jim, still can't believe how a routine walk on this pier in scenic San Francisco Wednesday turned into a nightmare in broad daylight.
She was really laboring in her breath, and this guy just kept talking to her.
I'll miss introducing her to my baby and having fun with her, and I'll miss her smile and her laugh.
U.S. officials are now pointing the finger at local law enforcement, saying they handed over Sanchez to San Francisco authorities to face a law.
We'll get into more of this story. We've got Joe Gazzardi, who is the national media director at CAPS, coming up right after this break. Hey, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show. This portion of the Tim Donnelly Show is sponsored by CAPS, Californians for Population Stabilization, to support an organization that works every day to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law and exposing the truth about how unchecked illegal immigration affects the average Californian. Go to capsweb.org. That's CAPS web.org and become a member. And you can become part of the solution. Hey, we are going to continue our coverage and our conversation about the tragedy, the preventable tragedy that happened in San Francisco. And, you know, I can't help wonder. And we're going to play you some clips a little bit later on about the passion with which President Obama eulogized one of the 9 who, the former state senator and pastor who was murdered in Charleston. And as he should. It was very appropriate. He sounded like he actually cared. And then you hear him talking about what ISIS is doing, slaughtering people around the world, and there's no emotion at all. It's as if he's reading off the back of a cereal box. And then when it comes to things like this, where someone who is in the country illegally, someone who has been protected by Democrat-sponsored and Republican GOP establishment sort of looks the other way, doesn't say anything, doesn't mount any effective opposition because they don't want to offend the Hispanic vote. Well, you know what? If you're Hispanic and you don't like people being killed, no matter what color they are, by people who are in the country illegally, especially a 7-time felon who's been 5 times deported, I'd love to hear from you because I think this is... I'm wondering if and when we're ever going to get to the tipping point, but we are going to bring on our guest who is the national media director for CAPS, the California for Population Stabilization organization that consistently alerts Californians to the threat. Joe Gazzardi, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show. Okay, did I push that button right or did I? There you are. Hey, Joe, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Good to be with you, although the circumstances are very sad tonight.
They are sad, but Joe, I asked Jamil Shah this earlier, and as somebody who has followed this battle, and it has been a battle for many of us, I have not been affected personally, but I know so many people who have. I have too many friends who have lost loved ones because of the policies of cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles that are largely controlled by Democrats. And look, on this show, we really don't care where the stupidity and the idiocy comes from. We attack it whether it's Republicans or Democrats, but in this case, it is Democrats that control California and certainly control San Francisco. I mean, I don't see the outrage. Are you as surprised as I am that there's no call to tear down every Mexican flag in the United States, to torch them like they are with the Confederate flag, to, you know, you don't have people marching up and down the streets threatening to burn entire cities, and yet this is clearly the policies of Democrats that are getting Americans killed.
Tim, you're right. I mean, the response has been very muted. There have been some stories in the press that have basically outlined the facts, and the television news coverage has been limited. They did have Fox News did do an interview with Sean Moran, who's the vice president of the National Border Patrol Council, and he said that these aliens, as they cross the border coming into California, they know exactly which sanctuary cities are out there. And in California, there's about 35 of them. So it really, once they get into California, they can go virtually anywhere and be assured that they're not going to be asked about their immigration status.
Well, I've long said on this show, Joe, that 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 if you have illegally entered the United States and California is not your destination, then you are not paying attention. Because not only, and by the way, AB 4, which is also known as the Trust Act, which I fought vehemently on the floor of the Assembly, organized in the streets, and we couldn't get enough effective opposition to it, essentially takes San Francisco and Los Angeles type sanctuary policy and spreads it statewide. So this is not just a policy that affects a city like San Francisco. As you said, there's 35 cities who seem to have really taken it seriously. What is the thinking behind that? Do you have any idea?
Tim, you and I have been talking about California's very dangerous approach to immigration for years now, and it's accelerated in the last couple of years under Jerry Brown with the Trust Act, with driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, with Kamala Harris promoting the Gang of Eight amnesty bill. And what is the end game? What do these individuals who are, have impressive academic credentials, so you would think they would say, well, clearly this leaves innocent citizens, potentially vulnerable, if not absolutely vulnerable, to the criminal element in California. But they press on.
Well, certainly there is no doubt. I mean, San Francisco is now the killing grounds. It's the illegal alien killing grounds because you still have the blood of Tony and Michael and Matthew Bologna killed at the hands of an illegal alien gangbanger named Edwin Ramos, MS-13 gang member who had been shot at that morning by some Mexican gang members. He's from El Salvador. But he's in the country illegally. He was in the custody of the San Francisco authorities, but they dumped him out on the streets, even though he was a violent thug. He had attacked a pregnant woman on a bus. He had previously killed somebody, but nobody knew that because San Francisco refuses to cooperate. They won't even allow the fingerprints of people they suspect to be in the country illegally to be sent over to ICE to get confirmation and find out if they've committed crimes in other states or in other countries. And the bottom line is they don't seem to care at all about the safety of Americans, but they care about their political power, and they believe their political power is dependent on more and more illegals making their home in California, so eventually they can give them amnesty, so eventually they can vote and become citizens.
I went back earlier this morning and researched some of the quotes that, for example, then Mayor Gavin Newsom made about how proud he was that the San Francisco was taking the lead in sanctuary policies. And, where is he today on this? Can he be reached for a comment on this? Or the mayor, I know the current mayor, is avoiding reporters. He has no official comment yet. He's hiding under the guise of wanting to learn more about the facts behind the incident and so on and so forth.
Well, we have reached out to Gavin Newsom. We have reached out to Kamala Harris. I think they're too cowardly to come on and answer for their policies. Sure. The blood is dripping off their hands under their Gucci loafers, and they're going to spin some kind of new thing. But the White House, I got to give the White House credit. They didn't even take 15 seconds. They could care less about Catherine Steinle. They could care less. They have no concern for her life. They've made no comment. She's not black, so she doesn't matter. American lives don't matter. But they blame the Republicans. They literally came out and said because the Republicans opposed the president's more generous amnesty and refused to invest more money in some kind of BS, so-called enforcement. Look, the bottom line is Obama has cut off all enforcement of our laws, not just for the nice, happy-go-lucky, want a better life illegals. He's also cut off all enforcement for even the criminal aliens. He's deported virtually no one.
The Washington Times had a story the other day where among these criminal aliens that we know he has released into the public, 125 of them went on to commit murders shortly after they were released. That's a story that was published in the Washington Times just a little bit ago.
And the media had a big fat yawn. We covered it on this show. We had Chris Cabrera, Border Patrol agent, on. We've got the cartels shooting at our helicopters from across the border. Obama does nothing. Obama says nothing because, once again, unless there's a racial element to it, unless there's a white police officer involved, unless he can game it for political advantage, then they just ignore it. And if they ignore it, the American people don't know that it happened. In this case, we can be thankful. It doesn't matter what you think of Donald Trump, but you need to be grateful that he brought it to the presidential level into the debate and forced this issue to be covered on a national level. We are talking with Joe Gazzardi of the Californians for Population Stabilization. Joe, can you hold over for a break?
Sure thing.
Okay. This portion of today's show is sponsored by CAPS, Californians for Population Stabilization. You need to support an organization that works every day to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law, exposing the truth about how... Whether you're an experienced shooter or just buying your first gun, Turner's Outdoorsman has everything you need, along with a knowledgeable and friendly staff to help you find that perfect gear for your next adventure. Turner's now has 18 locations across Southern California, including a Victorville location right on Bear Valley Road. Be sure to check out the new Archery Pro shops in the Victorville, Chino Hills, and Pasadena locations. If you're not sure what you're looking for, you can browse and shop their selection at Turners.com. Be sure to check out their weekly specials and sign up to get them delivered directly to your inbox. Turners is where I turn for all my firearms and ammo needs. Remember to tell them Tim Donnelly sent you, and you'll get an additional discount. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. This portion of the Tim Donnelly Show has been sponsored by CAPS, Californians for Population Stabilization. You need to support this organization because they got your back. They are working hard every day to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law and exposing the truth about how unchecked illegal immigration affects the average Californian. Go to CAPS Web, that's CAPSweb.org, and become a member. Do it today. And by the way, we happen to have on the Radio Free California Newsmaker line with us the National Media Director from CAPS, and that is Joe Gazzardi. And Joe, you mentioned something earlier about how Gavin Newsom was out there front and center, proud of the sanctuary law that he had helped fight to become law in the city of San Francisco. Then San Francisco's assemblyman Tom Amiano pushed that and spread the policy statewide. Now they did this after the horrific murders, triple murder of the Bologna family, Tony, Michael, Matthew, a father and two sons, in the primes of their lives. I mean, the boys were, one was 16, one was 20, and then the father was, I'm thinking somewhere around my age, and, under 50, and, well, not for long, but at any rate, and this is their answer to make the rest of California as unsafe and as a sanctuary for potentially violent, ruthless, cold-blooded killers. And let's go down the death toll. We've got 2 cops, sheriff's deputies, that were gunned down by a so-called illegal alien who had just come here for a better life. He got a driver's license, bought a gun. I don't know how that happens. I mean, the gun laws are so strict. Comes into California.
These are the guys up in Sacramento.
I'm talking about the guy in Sacramento County about a year ago, because California is known as a sanctuary state.
Yes, and both the illegal alien murder up in Sacramento and the Sanchez guy in San Francisco. I mean, these guys have tremendous mobility. You know, they've been to other states, and eventually they land in California, I'm sure in large part because they know that California is the place to be if you're an illegal alien, and especially if you're an illegal alien who has crime on his mind.
Right. So. And look, this Francisco Sanchez, the 45-year-old illegal alien who had 7 felonies on his record, he had been deported 5 times. He claimed that he came to California. He came to San Francisco in particular because it was well known as a sanctuary city. And he knows that there would very likely be no consequence to whatever he did because he's watched it. You know, you can kill whoever you want. You can rape, you can maim, you can rob and steal and pillage. And the bottom line is California authorities will not cooperate with the feds in large part because of California law now. There's what's called the Trust Act that ties their hands and says they can't even send their fingerprints to the federal authorities to figure out if this person that they're about to release onto the streets is a dangerous person.
These sanctuary laws and the Trust Act, though, are in direct conflict with federal immigration law. There's a law in the books, and it's been on the books since 1996, that says that information about an individual's immigration status cannot be withheld. So when these guys like Newsom start announcing that they've established sanctuary policies, my question to them is, well, based on what authority?
Well, well, exactly. But see, they could care less about cooperating with federal immigration law. They're considered heroes. They're considered heroes in some circles for flouting federal law. They're proud of it. They've bragged about it. You talked about how Gavin Newsom is so proud, and Kamala Harris no less. She has said the same thing. She now wants to go help make federal law, the same federal law that she was happy to flout, to disobey, to undermine. And the bottom line is most people wouldn't care, but when American citizens like this Catherine Steinle are just gunned down, are murdered, are slaughtered in the primes of their life. Here she's standing on the pier. She's shot in the back, right through her heart. And what did she ever do to anybody? What did she do to deserve to be murdered in broad daylight?
Exactly right. I mean, it's just a terrible tragedy. And getting back for a minute to the sanctuary city policies violating federal law, I mean, that's where the Obama administration is so glaringly disinterested. The Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Justice, under a fair administration, a pro-American administration, would challenge those sanctuary cities. But they
would cut off funds or do something. There would be some kind of a consequence.
Cut off funds,
sure, for flouting federal law. But you know what, Joe Gazzardi, thank you for coming on and joining us today and discussing this issue. I'm hoping that we'll have you back. I wish it would be under other circumstances. Maybe we could celebrate the upholding of the rule of law rather than the undermining of it by our government. But it's California Democrats this time around that have blood on their hands. And I want to thank you for everything you do to expose this to the public.
And by the way, a great editorial today in Breitbart. You named all the names and put the guilt where it belongs on all of the people we've been talking about during our conversation.
Thank you. We have that up on TimDonnellyShow.com if you have not seen the article. And it is called California Democrats Have Blood on Their Hands. And I want to thank the organization, CAPS, that sponsored this portion of the Tim Donnelly Show. Californians for Population Stabilization. This is an organization you should support. If they're out there every day fighting to make our community safer by upholding the rule of law, exposing the truth about how unchecked illegal immigration affects the average Californian. Go to capsweb.org, that's CAPS web.org, and become a member today. Stay tuned. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right. That is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org.
You need cooling, baby, I'm not fooling. I'm gonna send you back to schooling, way down inside. Honey, you need it. I'm gonna give you my love. I'm gonna give you my love. Oh, want a whole lot of love. Want a whole lot of love. Want a whole lot of love.
So if you are like me and you are waiting for President Obama to call for the banning of the Mexican flag in the United States because of the murder of Catherine Steinle in San Francisco, brutal, vicious, ruthless, random, absolutely no reason for and no explanation for this murder. And yet, an illegal alien from Mexico killed a white woman in San Francisco, in an American city that has said to illegal aliens, especially to illegal alien killers, if you are an illegal alien killer, if you are a murderer, if you are ruthless, if you don't have no regard for human life, come to San Francisco, because we will let you get away with it. We will let you out of jail, because inevitably we'll pick you up for something. We will not turn you over to federal authorities. And so far, I don't know if I'm mistaken. I'm asking the Noskinator here. Has President Obama called for the banning of the Mexican flag in the United States?
Nope.
Has he called for the crackdown on illegal aliens who get guns and murder Americans?
Negative.
Has he called for any measures against those who... I was noting in his previous comments, a single individual with a hateful ideology and access to dangerous weapons. Well, here, there's always seems to be a single individual who is not even qualified to legally walk the streets of an American city, but somehow, mysteriously, in spite of the leftists' utopia of California, where gun control is not a dirty word. Gun control is everywhere. We've made it impossible for American citizens to buy, well, let me restate that, to exercise their Second Amendment. We've made it virtually impossible for you to buy a gun to protect your life, your liberty, your freedom, anything. Too bad for you. But somehow an illegal alien who's been more in jail more times than not, I would imagine, with 7 felonies on his record, 5 times deported, can gun down an American citizen in the prime of her life, cut her life short. And by the way, I have not heard the president call this a hate crime either.
No.
And when someone of one race kills someone of another race, if it's a black killed by a white cop or a gay person who is beaten to death by someone who obviously hates them, they call it a hate crime. But when an illegal alien kills a white woman in broad daylight on the streets of an American city, it's not a hate crime. Nobody's upset. I mean, did you notice in the clip that we played earlier with I think it was CNN, we had that George Stephanopoulos, who always tries to be so reasonable. You notice how reasonable they're being? They want to explain it, and they talk in hushed tones about how dreadful it is, and golly gee willikers. But when it was Dylan Roof, who cut short 9 American lives, then they want to change laws. They want to rip down flags. They want to silence people. They want to take away your guns. But when it's just an American citizen killed, they don't really give a bleep. They don't give a crap. I mean, let me play you a clip. I just want to get a taste of the passion in the president's voice as he delivers a eulogy. Now, and look, I've got no problem with the president delivering this eulogy. I think it was totally appropriate. I think it was important. But listen to the passion with which he talks about this tragic, senseless killing in Charleston, South Carolina, of the pastor of the church, who was also a state senator.
A family of preachers who spread God's word. A family of protesters who sowed change to expand voting rights and desegregate the South. Clem heard their instruction, and he did not forsake their teaching. He was in the pulpit by 13, pastor by 18, public servant by 23. He did not exhibit any of the cockiness of youth, nor youth's insecurities. Instead, he set an example worthy of his position. And house the homeless is not just a call for isolated charity, but the imperative of a just society. Right. What a good man. Sometimes I think that's the best thing to hope for when you're eulogized. After all the words and recitations and resumes are read, to just say somebody was a good man. You don't have to be of high station to be a good man. No. Preacher by 13, pastor by 18. He didn't know he was being used by God. Blinded by hatred, the alleged killer could not see the grace surrounding Reverend Pickney and that Bible study group. The light of love that shone as they opened the church doors and invited a stranger to join in their prayer circle. The alleged killer could have never anticipated the way the families of the fallen would respond when they saw him in court in the midst of unspeakable grief with words of forgiveness. He couldn't imagine that. The alleged killer could not imagine how the city of Charleston, under the good and wise leadership of Mayor Riley, how the state of South Carolina, how the United States of America would respond not merely with revulsion at his evil act, but with big-hearted generosity, and more importantly, with a thoughtful introspection and self-examination that we so rarely see in public life. Blinded by hatred, he failed to comprehend what Reverend Pinckney so well understood: the power of God's grace.
Yes, sir.
On you being free too. That say a wretch like me, I
Now that is how a president who actually gives a damn sounds. And by the way, I want to applaud the president for going there in person, for eulogizing someone, because that's his role. He's there for all of the people. But I've never seen him do it in a white church. And he will not go to San Francisco and eulogize Catherine Steinle, because she was killed in part because of policies that he supports. He's got blood on his hands, and he will never own it. But you know, in the midst of that incredible eulogy, he did lash out at you and I. He lashed out at anyone who believes in the Second Amendment. He believes that what he calls access to dangerous weapons, instead of saying, hey, look, let's be honest. We have a Second Amendment that is inculcated into our founding documents. We have to respect that. We can't turn around and put the liberties of all Americans at risk simply because of the actions of an evil few. And see, if he said that, then he could say that again when the evil few were illegal aliens killing a white woman, or a hateful racist killing black people, or Islamic jihadists, Islamic extremists killing everybody, and even having children. There was a news headline just before the break of a child soldier. They're turning children into soldiers. They had them execute a bunch of Syrians in the middle of a stadium, and they just had one who blew up a bomb and killed 50 people, including himself. A child. That's unspeakable evil. And we should stand against all unspeakable evil, whether it's committed as a result of your policies. If you got to own it, and you got to admit it, and then you got to reverse those policies and say, you know what? The evil few spoiled it for the rest of you. So we're going to have to enforce the law, and we're going to change this country from a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals to a sanctuary for Americans, and American lives matter. 323-746-TALK if you want to weigh in. We'll be right back after these messages. Hey, you've heard me talk over and over again about Burro Canyon Shooting Park, which is arguably the greatest place on the face of the earth to exercise your Second Amendment. But it just got better, because if you mention the Tim Donnelly Show, they'll give you free stuff. You get a free hat, free coffee cup, while supplies last, if you mention Tim Donnelly Show. So get out there and get shooting. For directions or more information, call Burro Canyon at 626-910-1344. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. We have been talking about the tragic, horrific, completely, absolutely 100% preventable killing of Catherine Steinle in San Francisco, but it was also 100% predictable. And as I walked you through the history, we actually had someone on who was part of that history, Jamil Shaw, who lost his son because of sanctuary laws. And he became an activist. Danielle Bologna lost virtually her entire family because of a sanctuary law, and she blamed that sanctuary law. She wanted to see it changed. Gavin Newsom tinkered around with it, but talked about how proud he was. We're going to bring you some clips tomorrow on that. Right now, we're going to go to the phone lines for some reaction. We've got Mike from Wrightwood. Mike, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hey, thanks. Actually, when you mentioned that, it kind of reminds me of the other day I posted something about how far we're going to go where, Obama just decided to put out a thing saying that, people can come here and commit crimes to get away with it anyway. So I wasn't too happy when I started hearing these things. But, in Iraq, we used to have a thing we called WITS, Wahhabis in training. Wahhabism, Takfiris, those are the extremists in the Muslim faith that are being taught at a very early age. And we had 5-year-olds that would give us dirty looks, cuss at us in their own little ways. And, it's something that's being taught. It's like you got these guys that are standing there that are protecting their moms and dads. Their dads are gaining 35 pounds, being treated like, kings basically in a prison cell. But they have their own open yards. They tried to kill us, and we're giving them everything in the world. Free tea, free, cigarettes, plenty of food, exercise, but they're being taught to hate us because they're trying to kill us because just of the religion.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate form of child abuse. I don't care what your position is on any war, anywhere, when children are being used and being forced to become soldiers, it destroys their soul. They're way too young to be involved in something like that, and it's so little coverage of this, accompanied the coverage of the war, where they were always trying to find Americans doing something wrong. And yet that is such a monumental evil. And now we're watching it, and Obama hasn't said a damn word about it. Did you hear the clip we played earlier? He's so dispassionate. It's like he's talking about what he's going to have for breakfast.
Yeah, it's when you really go through his background and, people want to argue about what he is, and it's, I did his background, I think I've told you before, I did background for him when I was doing Sean Hannity stuff years ago before he got elected. And, I didn't go by my name because I was active duty, but, I wanted to look into his past to find out who he was. And when I see more and more, and every day I see more that goes on, like my grandpa or my kids, they all refer to me as Army Grandpa. But, they were just here for the weekend. They got to enjoy the 4th. They got to see 20 different flags and learn the history of it. But they also got taught that the Army doesn't mean to kill people. It means to protect the country and keep everybody safe so that one day, my grandson sat there and he looked at my medals, and I'm like, yeah, those are going to be yours when you're old enough. And then when you're old enough and you have grandkids, you're going to pass them down. Because that was my grandpa from World War II, from Vietnam, from Korea. We're going to pass the history down, but we're also going to pass down the fact that, in this country, we're there to make sure everything can be nice, that everybody has an opportunity. We're not there to kill. we got to teach our kids the right way. Some people think, well, telling a kid to be a soldier at that age is just brainwashing and stupid. And it's like, no, I'm teaching my kids and I'm teaching my grandkids to respect the colors that we have outside of our house. So whichever flag I fly for the day doesn't matter, but just to respect and to love the nation that's given them the opportunity that one day they're going to get to choose what they want to do and how they do it. But they're also going to be raised with respect and dignity on how they treat women, how they treat this country, and they will always say hello to a soldier and always respect them. And, when I spent that time over there in Iraq and used to watch these guys, and, I worked at a prison camp or detainee camp, to use the right term, and I listened to some of these guys and what they were saying and how they were teaching these kids, and I guess it's one of the issues I had with, American Sniper, great movie. The guy was a great person. The job is unbelievable. But the first thing that we teach is never talk about who you kill, never talk about how many, because it's not about that. It's about giving everybody a right to freedom and letting people have the opportunity in life to succeed. And,
well, Mike,
if we could just do that one simple thing, it'll be great.
Thank you. Thank you for your call. Thank you for your service to our country.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Hey, the Tim Donnelly Show, I don't do it by myself. I want to thank everyone who helps me. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless and Godspeed. Tim Donnelly Show out. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344.